Massive explosions erupted across multiple regions of Russia overnight, as Ukraine reportedly carried out simultaneous drone attacks on three major industrial facilities in Moscow, Tula, and occupied Crimea. The strikes, which began late in the evening and continued into the early hours, caused large-scale fires and visible damage to critical energy and industrial infrastructure. Local footage captured huge plumes of black smoke rising from burning plants as Russian emergency crews battled to contain the flames. According to preliminary reports, Ukrainian long-range drones targeted a power equipment plant near Moscow, a chemical production site in Tula Oblast, and an oil storage facility near Sevastopol in Crimea. The attacks mark one of Ukraine's most extensive cross-border operations in recent weeks, highlighting Kyiv's growing reach deep inside Russian-held territory. Hello everyone, welcome back to Ballistic Beacon. Please subscribe and like the videos to stay updated on the latest verified defense developments from around the world. Russian officials claim that air defenses intercepted several drones, but debris and secondary explosions still caused significant fires at multiple locations. Moscow's mayor, Sergei Sobyanin, stated that emergency services had responded quickly and that the fires were being contained. However, videos circulating on local networks show widespread damage and heavy smoke, contradicting early official reassurances. In the Moscow region, explosions were heard north of the city, near an industrial district producing power generation components. Local residents reported hearing anti-aircraft fire, followed by a loud detonation and visible flames. Russian emergency units arrived at the site shortly after midnight, sealing off access to the surrounding roads. Further south, in Tula, a city known for its defense and mechanical industries, a large blaze was reported near a facility manufacturing chemical compounds and equipment. The fire reportedly spread across several buildings within minutes, forcing evacuation of nearby residential areas. Regional authorities later confirmed that the cause was drone debris impact, though independent sources claim at least one drone hit the plant directly. Meanwhile, in Crimea, multiple explosions rocked the Sevastopol area, where Ukrainian drones are said to have targeted oil storage tanks used for refueling Russian Black Sea Fleet operations. Satellite images released this morning by open-source analysts show extensive damage, with thick smoke columns stretching several kilometers across the coast. Local residents described the night sky lit up orange, as secondary fuel detonations continued for hours. The Russian Ministry of Defense issued a brief statement claiming that the majority of enemy drones were destroyed in flight, but admitted that some had reached industrial zones. Russian Telegram channels linked to local security services suggest that over 25 drones were launched simultaneously, with several bypassing radar detection. Ukrainian officials have not officially commented, in line with their usual policy of operational silence. However, analysts in Kyiv say the timing and choice of targets fit Ukraine's ongoing strategy to disrupt Russian military logistics and industrial capacity, supporting frontline operations. Military experts note that the three targets' energy, chemical, and fuel infrastructure are strategically vital to Russia's war effort. Damaging these sectors limits the country's ability to produce, transport, and sustain military supplies. In Crimea, where fuel depots are essential for naval and ground operations, the attack could temporarily hinder Russia's regional logistics. The destruction of oil storage tanks near Sevastopol may affect the refueling of naval vessels operating in the Black Sea, an area that has witnessed increasing Ukrainian activity in recent months. In Tula, the targeted industrial complex is reportedly linked to components used in vehicle manufacturing and machinery that support Russia's defense supply chain. Satellite images suggest significant damage to warehouse roofs and adjacent structures. If confirmed, this could impact the repair and production capacity for equipment used on the Ukrainian front lines. The Moscow strike carries both operational and symbolic importance. Striking near the capital again demonstrates Ukraine's capacity to project power beyond the immediate war zone. The frequency of these attacks has exposed vulnerabilities in Russia's air defense network, particularly in intercepting low-flying, slow-speed drones designed to evade radar detection. Over the past month, Ukraine has intensified its use of domestically produced long-range drones capable of traveling over 1,000 kilometers. These aircraft operate autonomously, using pre-programmed coordinates, and are relatively inexpensive compared to conventional missiles. Experts say this has allowed Ukraine to sustain high-impact operations with minimal cost and reduced risk to personnel. In response, Russia has been deploying additional electronic warfare systems around key industrial areas. However, several recent incidents, including tonight's fires, suggest these countermeasures are not fully effective against Ukraine's latest drone models. Eyewitnesses in Tula described several loud detonations, followed by a bright flash. Residents filmed flames spreading rapidly through the facility's roof, with emergency sirens echoing across the area. In Moscow, parts of the industrial zone were temporarily cut off from the power grid as firefighters worked to prevent further explosions. Russian emergency services have not released an official casualty count, though regional authorities confirmed that several workers sustained injuries. Firefighting operations continued through the night, and the full extent of the damage may not be known for several days. From an analytical standpoint, the strikes demonstrate an increasingly assertive Ukrainian strategy focused on eroding Russia's industrial resilience rather than merely targeting battlefield assets. By attacking infrastructure hundreds of kilometers from the front, Ukraine seeks to pressure Moscow economically and psychologically, undermining its sense of security and control. International observers, including analysts from NATO and European think tanks, have noted a marked increase in the range, accuracy, and coordination of Ukraine's drone campaigns. These attacks not only disrupt supply chains, but also compel Russia to divert air defense resources away from active combat zones, stretching its overall defensive capability. Meanwhile, Russian state media has sought to downplay the damage, focusing on claims of successful interceptions and minimal disruption. Nonetheless, local footage contradicts those assertions, with multiple independent videos showing intense fires and emergency vehicles operating throughout the night. In Crimea, traffic restrictions were temporarily imposed around Sevastopol as the fire spread near fuel pipelines leading to the port. Local authorities urged residents to stay indoors due to toxic smoke. Maritime operations were suspended for several hours while crews worked to prevent the blaze from reaching additional storage tanks. Energy analysts suggest that the destruction of even a small number of oil tanks can have a disproportionate logistical effect, especially in wartime conditions. Repairs to such infrastructure require weeks, if not months, given the ongoing shortage of spare parts and the vulnerability of Crimea to further strikes. In Moscow and Tula, damage to industrial equipment could delay ongoing production cycles tied to Russia's domestic energy and defense manufacturing sectors. The psychological effect on Russian civilians hearing explosions within the capital region also continues to shape the public perception of the war, reinforcing the message that the conflict is no longer confined to the front line. For Ukraine, these operations signal an expanding ability to target infrastructure that directly supports Russian combat readiness. Analysts argue that Kyiv's drone campaign now forms a central pillar of its broader strategic doctrine, combining precision, endurance, and psychological impact. As the war approaches another winter, control over energy and supply networks will again prove decisive. Ukraine's continued pressure on Russian logistics may serve to weaken Moscow's position before renewed fighting intensifies in 2026. At the same time, both nations appear committed to deepening technological warfare, with Russia accelerating its counter-drone systems and Ukraine advancing its autonomous strike capabilities. The next phase of the conflict could see further escalation in both the frequency and range of these drone operations. For now, all three affected Russian regions remain under investigation, with emergency teams assessing structural damage. Fires in Sevastopol are reported to be largely under control, though smoldering fuel continues to burn. In Tula and Moscow, partial restoration of industrial power grids is underway, but production remains halted pending safety inspections. The Russian government has vowed a response, though officials provided no specifics. Historically, such incidents have been followed by intensified missile strikes against Ukrainian infrastructure, particularly energy systems and railway hubs. Ukrainian cities, meanwhile, remain on alert for potential retaliatory bombardments in the coming days. International reaction remains measured but watchful. Western defense analysts continue to track the situation, while diplomatic circles urge both sides to avoid escalation beyond military targets. However, the frequency of such deep strikes suggests the conflict's technological dimension is rapidly intensifying. As the night's smoke clears over Moscow, Tula, and Crimea, one reality remains clear: Ukraine's drone operations have become an integral and increasingly effective instrument of modern warfare, capable of reaching the very heart of Russian industrial capacity. Further updates will be provided as verification emerges from satellite imagery and official reports in the coming hours.